Good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. We will get started with this session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. We will allow others to join. So again, welcome. Glad to have you. Welcome, Peter. We're going to get the session started at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. So you still have time. Welcome, Kyle. We'll begin the session 2 minutes after the top of the hour. So you still got time to get coffee or something to drink. Again, 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Welcome. Welcome, Rodrigo. We'll get started with the session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome to you that have just joined. We're going to start at 2 minutes after the hour, so you still have a few more minutes. Again, welcome. Welcome, Matthew. We'll get started in another 2 minutes, so you still have time to run and get coffee or something to drink. Again, another 2 minutes, 2 minutes after the top of the hour.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. We'll get started in about another minute. We'll allow others to join. So again, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully you all are joined and ready to learn some Sumo Logic information. My name is Odell Gordon. I am a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic. Just a little bit about my background. I've been in IT for about 30 years now. I've played various roles, DBA, DevOps, database designer. My background has been mostly around data and of course a technical trainer. I'm calling into our call from the Midwest, where it's a balmy 85 degrees today. So hopefully you're somewhere comfortable as well. All right, let's go ahead and get this party started. So what we're going to cover in this session here, we'll give you an overview, a 500-foot overview of Sumo Logic. Then I will demonstrate a monitoring and troubleshooting event. Then you and we together will get into our training environment, Sumo Logic's training environment. We're going to invite you into it, where we will do some hands-on labs, where we'll view all the collected data. We will search and parse and analyze that data, okay? Through our analysis, we will identify trends. We'll also be able to monitor critical events. We'll then create and modify some dashboards and create some alerts. Then the last 60 minutes, we'll go ahead and allow you to go ahead and get certified in the Sumo fundamentals as a generalist. Again, we want you to get certified while the information is still fresh in your minds after the course. Now, once you take the certification and you pass the certification exam, we would like to reward you. We'll give you a $15 Uber Eats voucher. I will put in the chat, once we get to the exam, the actual link for you to fill out the certification award, okay? All right, welcome to you all that's just joined us. Again, my name is Odell Gordon. I'm a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic. All right, so let's get in here. We're going to look at how does Sumo Logic help us, help me, okay? Now I'm going to save some bandwidth here and turn off my actual video so you can focus on the lecture as well as the actual slides. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat, and I'm manning the chat as well, so give me an opportunity to get to the questions. But again, you can post your questions in the chat for me. Thank you. All right, so how does Sumo Logic help me? What you're seeing here is 4 examples of dashboards that you can create in our tool, okay? So as I mentioned in my background, I did play the role of DevOps. And my task was to come in and check the logs. So I would come into the SOC environment, log into the Unix console, look for the logs that I was in question, and then I would issue some grep statements, which allows me to search throughout the logs. But had I had Sumo Logic's continuous intelligence platform, CIP, then I could have created an operational dashboard. If I had a dashboard like that, similar to the operational dashboard you're seeing, then I could have found out, are all my systems up and running? Are there any mean times that I need to identify or resolve? Are there any other system health concerns? So again, as I mentioned, this is one example of a dashboard that we could have created in our tool to glean some information. From a security perspective, we could have created a dashboard to find out who's using root access. Is anyone logging in from multiple locations simultaneously? Okay, we could have gleaned out that type of information from a security intelligence dashboard. From a business perspective, we can imagine that we issued a marketing campaign. We want to find out how successful the marketing campaign was. We want to find out what pages are people frequently viewing on our websites. What are they ordering? Okay, so again, we could have gleaned out that type of information from a business intelligence dashboard. And then finally, the final example of dashboards that you can create in our tool is global intelligence. You want to compare your data against other companies and observing your data worldwide. So those are 4 examples of dashboards that you can create in our tool to alert yourselves, to monitor, okay? Now we have to look at your data. Now your data is extracting real-time insights, massive volumes of data, such as logs, metrics, metadata, traces. All of that, your data, your logs and your metrics can come from any source here. Maybe your data is in an app. Maybe those logs, metrics are in apps. Maybe they're in the microservices. Maybe they're already in the cloud. Maybe they're mobile devices. But again, wherever your logs and metrics are, it's going to allow us to create some searches and monitoring and dashboards off of them. So what do we offer? Okay, our analytics. Well, the first thing you want to be aware of is we're a multi-tenancy environment. That means security is very high on our list, very important, okay? One of our core values is we're in it with our customers. And what we mean by that is we're in it from the beginning to the end when it comes to your data security, your logs and your metrics, all of your data, we're securing it, okay? Now, we're a cloud-based company, so we're scalable, which means if you need to request more space to grow, you're growing, we'll grant your needs. Maybe you're downsizing, so you need to reclaim some of that space, give it back. Well, we'll do that for you. That's what we mean by elastic. You're going to notice when we get into the tool, I'll talk about some machine learning capabilities in the tool. Some companies like to incorporate Sumo Logic into their products. So application programming interfaces. Again, you can scale your environment by using those APIs. You'll see some advanced analytics that I'll talk about in the tool. And then you'll see security here. You'll see in this actual screenshot here that you'll see over to the right, our attestments, our certifications. Again, as I mentioned, we take security as a high priority. You can see that we're FedRAMP certified, HIPAA certified, SOC 2 certified. Those are just some of our certifications and attestments. Again, what we're doing here is we're describing what and how the continuous intelligence platform can be useful to you. Finally, here we're talking about your people. So one of the things that we mean here is you want to achieve continuous collaboration across all lines of your business, okay? You want to have one source to facilitate decision-making. So within these objects that you create in our tool, you can share them, okay? So just sort of recapping of what we're doing here on this first slide here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 500-foot overview of how Sumo Logic can help you, okay? Using the CIP platform, the continuous intelligence platform. You know, you can build dashboards to create alerts. You know, wherever your metrics and logs are, we're going to get your metrics and logs into our Sumo Logic environment. You see what we offer as far as analytics. We're scalable, multi-tenancy, advanced analytics, APIs, and again, your business, your people. These objects that you find, the results can be shared amongst anyone in your actual company. Okay, now we're looking here at a monitoring and troubleshooting example and a process that you should essentially follow, okay? So essentially what we're saying here is you're going to want to be notified when a critical event happens. So you want to be alerted. We have alerting systems. You'll see when I get started in this demo, I'm going to utilize Slack. But maybe you don't have Slack. Maybe you have HipChat. Maybe you have ServiceNow. And maybe you need to create a webhook where you're going to another type of alerting system. We have that capability, okay? But again, the first thing you want to happen in a process, in a workflow here, when we're talking about monitoring, is you want to get notified of a critical event. Once you get notified, you then want to look at your metrics to find out what's going on, okay? And then finally, after you find out what's going on, you look at your logs and identify why it happened. So what I'm about to do is demonstrate that actual monitoring and troubleshooting event, okay? What I'd like for you to do is just imagine for a minute and just hang in there with me. Imagine that I work for a travel company, okay? And we're gonna call that travel company Travel Logic. And what we've done here is we set up Slack alerts to identify when there's any major issues. So I'm looking at my Slack here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is just in a demonstration for you. And I'm looking at my production 8. I see that there's some problems because it's highlighted, okay? I click on my production 8 alerts and I look at the latest alert. I see that there was some gateway response time outliers. Okay, I can see what time it happened as well. Now in this alert, we actually set up two actual links that takes you inside of the Sumo Logic CIP. Okay, so I'm gonna digress for a moment and log into Sumo Logic for us. You're just watching and enjoying the demo, hopefully. We'll talk about the entire CIP coming up. Just let me get through the demo, please. So one of the things that I could have done is I could have just logged into the actual CIP, the Continuous Intelligence Platform, and I could have went into, let's say, my personal, something I favorite, my production environment. So here's a folder that we created inside of the CIP that allows us to look at our production environment. So I can go to my prod 8 here, go to my operations here, and look at my dashboard, system dashboard. Okay, so that gave me 12 panels. Now, this is just one approach to getting to this dashboard. Let me digress and go back to the actual Slack. Okay, recall that I could have just came in Slack at the very beginning, clicked on my prod 8, clicked on the Go Operational Overview. That's going to take me to the same dashboard that I just opened a second ago. Okay, so I'm demonstrating multiple ways to find out what's going on, taking you to a dashboard. Okay, so here's that same dashboard that I went to. I either came into the CIP and went to my production and opened it, or I went to my alerting system. In this case, it was Slack. Okay, now let's go ahead. Let me close out of this one. I got a couple of them open. Now, let's keep a traffic light in the back of our minds. And what I mean by traffic light, red means, hey, I need to go investigate. Something's wrong. Green means good. Everything's working fine. Yellow means, hey, I need to keep my eye on it. It's more of a warning, so to speak. Now, what we currently see, ladies and gentlemen, is a bunch of green and reds. Okay, so we see our service nodes. Everything's fine there. The elastic load balancing is fine. Our database, there's no errors or warnings. Our product services, no errors, okay? But we also see some red here. We see some transaction time, payment services. There's a problem there. Our job queues, there's some issues there. The elastic load balancing, there's some problems, okay? Now, what we're gonna do here, you and I, while we're watching here, I see that there's some checkout services. Just to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, I work for a travel agency. It's called Travel Logic, okay? This is where you can book your travel, your airline, your airfare, your car rental, your hotel. Now, we're just coming off of one of the largest holidays of travel after the pandemic. We don't want any issues, any problems with users trying to book travel. So we can see that there's some issues in our checkout service. Now, I'm demonstrating a monitoring event, okay? We're in the actual CIP. One of the features in our tool is you can create a drill effect. What do you mean, Odell, a drill effect? Well, this 12 panel dashboard is a bit much. I want to be able to go to a more succinct set of dashboards. So I can create a drill effect where I click on this particular dashboard panel and it takes me to another set of dashboards. Okay. Now, again, digressing, if I go back to my Slack, again, I was looking at production 8. I could have opened up the 12 panel, which is the overview, or I could have went to the more detailed panel as well. So when I click on this services detail, it's going to log me into the same environment. Okay. So again, you have multiple ways of monitoring. You can set up an alerting system, or you can actually go into the actual CIP and look at the actual dashboard panels. Now, we can see on this here set of this dashboard, we have 6 panels. Each one of these panels represents an underlying query, okay? We can see that our bookings, first it started out well, we started out with some errors, then it went good, then some more errors. Okay, we can see over the last 7 days how we had some issues. We can see our error nodes. Our nodes had some issues. Okay, our latency had some spikes and peaks. We also see that there are some outliers in our latency averages. And we see our CPU and total memory. Just to kind of backtrack, Odell, how did you get here? Well, again, I started out at that very high level system dashboard. That's where the 12 panels are. What we built was a drill effect where we're able to drill on one of these panels and it takes us to a services detail where we have 6 panels. Now, be aware that these panels are also allow you to be interactive. So I can go to my legend in this panel and turn off my successes. And I can see it started out with some error messages. Looks like they kind of declined and then we started picking up more. Okay. Remember what our purpose here is. We were alerted there was an issue. We want to look at our actual metrics to find out what happened. And then we're going to look at our logs to find out why it happens. All right, now, we actually can see in our CPU and total memory that, again, there's some spikes and peaks here. Well, one of the features that we can do in our tool here is we can click on this icon in the top right corner. There's no underlining drill effect here, okay? So we can click on this icon, which actually will show us our metrics. So you're gonna see a new tab launched here. And again, in case you take the exam and you get an exam question that talks about heat maps, here is your heat map. The color will get darker as the actual messages increase, okay? So what we're seeing here is the actual metrics. We're looking at our actual CPU and our memory, okay? Now, so we see that there's some spikes and peaks here. We see the heat map as well. We can see the actual query that's being generated. So we want to look at the log messages. Another technique in our tool is we can click on one of the heat map cells. I'm holding down my shift key and clicking my mouse. That's going to launch a new tab and put our actual log query here. Okay, so you're seeing the actual log query from the metrics. Remember, I was in the metrics. I looked at what I was seeing, CPU versus memory, and then I saw the actual query. Okay, now what we're seeing in the query, and I'll talk about this. This is a metadata tag. I'll describe those coming up shortly. Okay, I'm setting this metadata tag equal to my checkout logs. I'm using a keyword, error or exception. Okay, so in my checkout logs, it's going to return any messages that have error or exception. I can see the time period, see that it's done gathering results, the elapsed time, and the total amount of results. So I'll have 223 messages here. Okay, I can look at the messages. I can see the time and the actual message. Okay. In my field browser over to the left, I can see the fields that are going to be displayed. I can also hover over or click on any one of these names, not the checkbox. And if I click on one of these names, I'll get the percentage and the count. These are field extraction fields that came in through a rule. Okay, they're not in the display, however. Okay, anyhow, I can go through here and I can see that there's 25 messages per page of these 223. If I ever needed to change the amount of display items, I can go over to this gear symbol over to the right. I'll talk more about that shortly. Anyhow, I want to see all of my messages. I don't want to just see my exceptions and errors. So I'm going to remove the keyword. I want to see all of my checkout messages. I'm also going to change the time to about 60 minutes. I'll talk about the time as well. So over the last 60 minutes, I want to look at my checkout messages using the source category metadata tag. So I'll run that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm demonstrating how you would monitor an environment. This is just one example. It's not the only way, okay? So I can see these messages. I'm seeing all my messages. Now I have over 24,000 messages. I'm looking at page 1 of 978, okay? Now, earlier in the actual slides, I talked about some machine learning and some advanced analytics. One of our advanced analytics and machine learning features is this log reduce. If we take a look at these messages, they're mostly formatted the same. When I click on this log reduce, it's going to go and find all of the patterns that are alike and put them together. So it's going to smash down my results. Notice in my actual query, it has piped the log reduce operator. Now, what it's doing, it's going and finding patterns in all of those messages. Remember, it was over 20,000 messages that I was actually looking at. So it's done gathering. It took about 23 seconds. I still have the 24,000 results. I have my original messages tab. And since I'm using the log reduce operator, it's going to create a signatures tab. Okay. I can see here's an actual message that appeared over 10,700 times. Now you'll see it gives me different information, but you'll see some asterisk here. These asterisks says maybe the credit card number is different. The transaction ID number is different, but everything else where you don't see asterisks are the same, okay? I can see this message over 5,000 times and so forth and so on. Again, our goal is to find out why it happened. So one of the features that you can do in our tool is you can actually change the actual sort by clicking on the column headers. So I'm going to change it from a descending to an ascending just by clicking the column header. And notice here, this message appeared one time, okay? It reads info, boot 27, Travel Logic app started cluster. Service checkout, version 1.14 dev. Then the next, wait a minute. Can anyone identify why or where there's a problem here based on what I told you already? Can anyone identify? You can unmute yourselves or you can put it in chat. Why? What's happening here? Very good. You guys are yelling out the answers. That's awesome. What happens here is someone promoted a development version in a production environment. So the moral of the story here is we actually got alerted. Okay, let me go back to my actual slides. We got alerted. Then once we got alerted, we actually looked at the actual dashboards from the alerts. We looked at our metrics and we identified what was going on. We saw our CPU and our memory had some issues. From there, we then looked at the logs where we looked at all of our messages and we found out that someone actually promoted a development version in a production environment. Okay, so that was a monitoring and troubleshooting demo. Hopefully you got some actual information from that, the actual use cases. Okay, all right, now continuing on here. Sumo Logic has a data flow that we utilize. You're seeing the 3-step process of the data flow, okay? The first thing we need to do is get your logs and your metrics into our Sumo Logic environment. And if you bear with me for a minute, let's think of a highway, okay? Let's call it an information highway. On one end of the highway, you have the cloud-based Sumo Logic information environment, the Sumo Logic environment. That's on one part of the highway. On the other side of the highway is your logs and your metrics. Now, somehow we have to get your logs and your metrics into our cloud-based environment. And that method, that mechanism that we're going to use is called a collector, okay? The collector defines your sources, okay? What the collector does is it compresses, encrypts, and sends your log messages, your metric messages into our Sumo Logic environment. If you want to learn more about collectors and how to create them, come back and take the administration course, okay? Now, once we have your logs and your metrics in our Sumo Logic environment, then that would allow me, you, us to create searches and analyze our logs and metrics by utilizing operators inside of Sumo Logic. We can display our results in charts, different types of charts. The last step in our data flow is to create visualizations. Numbers are great, but visualizations are very quick, very forensic to the eye. It allows us to monitor and set up alerts and create dashboards. As you just saw, we were able to create a dashboard and set up alerts, okay? So again, in this logical data flow, we get your logs, your metrics into our environment. We then build searches and analyze using operators and charts to display our results. We'll then build visualizations such as dashboards that'll allow us to create alerts. That's what we're going to do in our actual labs coming up. All right, now I know this slide looks busy and sort of overwhelming at times when I display it, but again, let's think about that highway that I was just describing, okay? Here's our Sumo Logic cloud-based environment. Here's your logs and metrics. We're gonna divide the slide into halves, okay? On one half, I have something called an install collector. On the other half, I have something called a hosted collector. The goal here, ladies and gentlemen, is to get your logs and your metrics into our Sumo Logic cloud environment, okay? Now, let's imagine you had an on-prem system, okay? Here, you're doing a distributed installation where you're installing a collector on each machine, okay? That is going to compress, encrypt, send your logs and metrics through the firewall up into the Sumo Logic environment. This is a distributed approach of installed collectors when you have an on-prem environment. Another approach to an on-prem environment is if you wanted to create a standalone, where you have a centralized installation of an installed collector. Put it on one machine, and all of the other machines are feeding to it, okay? They again are going to, the actual install collector is again going to compress, encrypt, and send it through the firewall up into the Sumo Logic environment. Okay, so those are install collectors. If you have servers where you want to collect some metrics, or some logs, again, you're going to install a collector. If you want to find out more about install collectors, again, that's in the administration course. The other type of collector, there's only two, ladies and gentlemen, an installed and a hosted. A hosted collector is if your actual logs and metrics are already in the cloud. Maybe they're in AWS. Maybe they're in PagerDuty or in DevOps. They're maybe in the GitHub. Maybe they're Salesforce in the suite, SaaS. So again, maybe your logs and metrics are already in the cloud. There's no installation. It's essentially identifying where the logs and metrics are and ensuring that Sumo Logic has the actual permissions to get to those, the credentials. So again, no installing, installed. depending on where your logs or metrics are coming from. If it's cloud-based, you know it's going to be hosted. If it's on-prem, you know it's going to be installed. All right, now, you saw at the very beginning of my demo, I talked about something called source category. What you're seeing is 5 types of metadata tags. And this allows us to get to those logs and metrics once they're in the Sumo Logic environment, okay? You could use the underscore collector metadata tag and equate that to your host name. Okay, that's a broad approach to get to logs and metrics, but you could do that. Or maybe you want to equate your source name, underscore source name collector to the name and path of the log file. That's a different approach, but it can be done. You'll notice this one is in bold. That's the recommended. That's a preferred approach, where we're using the underscore source category and we're equating that to, for example, labs Apache access, or maybe labs Apache era, or maybe dev Apache access, or prod Apache access. So we can freely configure the source category. That's the preferred approach. That's what we're going to utilize. Okay. All right, so right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to allow you to actually log into our training environment. You're not logging into your production environment because we don't know what's in your production. We don't monitor, we don't manage that environment. What I'd like for you to do right now is think of a 3-digit number. That number can be from 1 to 999. Think of a 3-digit number, and I want you to put that number in the chat for me. While you're doing that, I want you also to watch me log in so we don't have any issues here, okay? So let me quickly switch over. All right, so you're gonna open up a browser. Thank you, Usha. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Prince, for all of you guys that are putting your numbers in, okay? Now, I want you to watch me first. You're going to open up a browser, and to get to our training environment, you're just going to type in your browser service.sumologic.com. Let me do it first, ladies and gentlemen, so you can see what's going to happen. Okay. Once you type that in and get to the actual login credentials, you're going to type in training plus analyst. And then that's where you'll put in your 3-digit number, okay, at sumologic.com. And then the password, again, let me display it for you, is logs with an uppercase S, the number 2022, and an exclamation mark. So if you all would go ahead and use your 3-digit number and log into our training environment. Please confirm that you were able to log in successfully by either raising your hand or letting me know in the chat. I don't want to leave anyone, so I want to make sure everyone gets in. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Marcus. Again, let me know if you're having any issues logging in. Thank you, Peter. Three-digit name, Hoi Lai, a 3-digit number. So it can be 9 on, yeah, there you go. Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, Zach. Yeah, I know you want to be 007. Somebody probably kind of logged out. Use another number, Zach. Thank you, Shu. Let me know you got in. Good, Freddie. Glad you're in. Again, I don't want to leave anyone. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, before you actually start clicking, I want to lead you through kicking the tires, looking under the hood, opening the door, letting the windows down. I use that analogy, that car analogy, because again, you're learning something new. All right, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Matthew. Let me know you got in, Eugene. Thank you, Deepak. Again, let me know. Mohammed, you use any 3-digit number you want. You think of a 3-digit number from 1 to 999. Thanks, Shu. Again, hopefully everyone's logged in. We're gonna kick the tires, look under the hood, roll the window downs together. Okay, so just be a little patient. I want to get everyone in. Thank you, Yuan. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. I don't mean any harm. All right, so I assume no one is having any trouble logging in here. Mohammed, again, I'll put it in the chat. It should work. Maybe you fat fingered it. Make sure you use the exclamation mark. Yeah, I'm going to show you, Jerry, some other resources shortly. Okay. Good question. Jerry asked, are there other resources for people that are new to the Sumo Logic environment? There are. Just trying to get everyone in first so we can all be in unison here. Thank you, gang. Hopefully you're logged in. Mohammed, how did that work for you? All right, awesome. All right. So if you have any problems with getting logged in, just put it in the chat. I'll get over to it as soon as I can, as quickly as I can. All right, make sure, Mohammed, you're logging into our training environment. I don't want you logged into your production environment, your development environment at home. I want you to log into Sumo Logic's training environment. So again, you need to open up a browser and make sure you're in our training environment. Anyhow, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you may have logged into a training user that has already been used. So if you're looking at my screen for a minute, you'll see that I have a bunch of tabs open. You can clear the tabs by going to any one of the tabs and choosing close all tabs. Okay. All right, now you may have logged in to the environment where you see the phrase Sumo Logic and you see a stack of pancakes there, those 3 lines. That collapses our navigation panel. Okay. It expands our navigation panel when you click on the 3 lines. You'll see an arrow next to the phrase Sumo Logic that collapses or hides the navigation panel. So I'm hiding and displaying the navigation panel. Okay. In the navigation panel, you'll see 4 tabs. The first tab, that's your recent folder. Okay. So anything that someone shared with you recently or you've opened recently, you'll see in the recents folder. To the right of the recents folder is the favorites folder. Right now I haven't favorited anything, so there's nothing there. To the right of the favorites folder is your personal folder. This is where when you save something or you create something, it's going to be stored in your personal folder. This is yours. No one can see it. Okay. Then to the right of that is your library. This is where maybe the administrator shared something with you. Okay. So again, you have 4 tabs, and I want to quickly demonstrate. If I favorited something, how would I do that? Well, each object has an asterisk by it. If I click that asterisk, not only is it now in the library, it's also in my favorites tab. I can clear it from the favorites, but I can't delete this object. So to remove it from my favorites, I clear the asterisk. Now it's no longer in my favorites, but it still exists from its initial location. You'll notice down at the bottom, there's a darker shaded area. We refer to this as our main menu. One of the things that I want to point out in the main menu, students often ask, hey, Odell, how do I log out of the Sumo Logic CIP? Well, here's a great answer for you. In the actual main menu, you would click on your username and then you can sign out. Okay, so that's what you would do if you wanted to sign out of the environment. Again, we're just kicking the tires, looking under the hood. We just looked at our navigation panel and our main menu, okay? Over to the right of the navigation panel, you'll see 3 tabs. You'll see the house, you'll see the library, and you'll see your alerts, okay? We're gonna spend all of our time on the house, the home. On the house tab, there's 3 links. You'll see the home link. On the home link, you can start any type of searches here. You also can see your recently opened dashboards, your recommended dashboards, any recently run searches and any pinned searches. This is under your home tab, your home link. To the right of the home link is your learn link. Now, some of you ask, hey, where can I go and find out more information about Sumo Logic? So here on our learn link, we give you some quick start videos, okay? There's a demonstration here. Here's how you want to use Sumo Logic, your data. Maybe you want to find out data collection strategies or built-in metadata, or maybe you want to look at some metadata and keywords. So we give you some quick start micro lesson videos. Now, besides the home link and the learn on the home tab learn link, you can also go out to YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. There's a plethora of YouTube videos on Sumo Logic. Again, a plethora, okay? Anyhow, continuing on the learn link, if you scroll down, you'll see that we have some lab steps, okay? So we are gonna follow these fundamental steps shortly, okay? When or if you take the administration course, you can take it with an actual instructor or you can do it self-service. These are the actual administration lab steps right here. So we give you starting points, give you videos and starting point labs. Over to the right, remember earlier I talked about once you get your logs and metrics into Sumo Logic, you then are going to start creating some analysis and searches by utilizing operators. Well, this cheat sheet, once I click on it, is going to display all types of operators, okay? Now, we use quite a bit of operators in building searches in our search mastery course, okay? That'll be a course that we're gonna have tomorrow. I am now closing the cheat sheet and going back to the CIP. Next to the cheat sheet is our documentation. Our full documentation is available. So when I click on the docs link, it launches another tab. And here's another place for those users that are new to the tool. You can come to the actual documentation and click on the start here. Once you click on that start here, you could possibly start where it says quick start labs and tutorials. You can click on that. And here you'll get the labs for fundamentals, the administration, the search mastery, some of our cloud security monitoring, analytics, metrics mastery. So again, here's a good way to start as well, okay? Odell, how did you get there again? Great question. Again, I'm in my CIP, my continuous intelligence platform. I went down in my home learn link and I clicked on the documentation. I went to the start here and I went to my quick start labs and tutorials. Okay. I am closing the actual documentation and going back to the CIP. All right, so this is a software company. You know, software changes often. It's a good idea to find out what's new, what's coming down the line. If you need to add a ticket for help, you can go ahead and ask support. If you're interested in getting trained on some of our upcoming courses, you can click on the Get Trained. That's going to launch our LMS system. And right out here, you can see our upcoming courses. You can easily register for those. It's just a matter of clicking and putting in some little pertinent information, and there you have it. So these are our upcoming courses. Okay, I am closing the tab for Get Trained and going back to the CIP. And lastly, over to the right here, you have your community. That's where other Sumo users share information, find out information as well. Okay, so again, all we're doing right now, ladies and gentlemen, is kicking the tires, looking on the hood, driving the car around the block. Now, let's go ahead. Right now, we're in the Home tab, Learn link. Let's go ahead and click on the certification. Now, one thing to be mindful of, ladies and gentlemen, when you take the certification, you're not going to take it in our training environment. And I'll talk about this more when the certification comes up. But again, you're not going to take it in our training environment. You're going to take it in your production environment. I mean, in your Sumo Logic environment. That's where you're going to take it. But anyhow, there's some good information here that I want to tell you about. So let's say you want the video for this class, or you want the lab, or you want the slides for this class. How do you get that? Well, if you make sure you're on your Home tab, you're on the certification link, you click on Get Certified. Once you click on Get Certified, it takes you to our Skill Jar app, and you can come and look for the recorded live training. When you click on that, for example, we're doing the fundamentals. If you want to hear the video, the 2-hour lecture again, you can click on the fundamentals certification. It's all free. You register free. It's just a click. And then what you'll get is the 2-hour lecture. You'll get the slides as well as the student guide. And that's for all of our curriculum. You can come out here and click on any one of these and then go and get the hear the actual lecture, get the slides and the lab guide. Okay. Again, that was from your Home tab, certification link, Get Certified. Okay. All right, any questions so far? Again, all we did was kick the tires, drive the car around the block, etc. All right, so I'm closing that Skill Jar app, going back to the CIP. Let's go ahead and make sure we're all on the Learn link. Okay. And I'm going to use another number. This number looks like it has a lot of used items. So I'm just going to use another number real quickly. You don't have to do anything. Just allow me to log in with a number real quickly. Thank you so much. Okay. And all right. So let's make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we are all on the Home tab Learn link. Okay. And you'll see here under the hands-on labs for fundamental, this is what we're going to utilize. So you can go ahead and click on View, Lab 1 View Data. Go ahead and click on that link. I'll add this link to the actual chat in case someone is having trouble. I'll add that link for you. If you're in a Google Chrome environment, one of the techniques that you can utilize is you can right-click on a tab and choose Pin. The advantage of right-clicking on that tab is it allows you to toggle between the lab and the CIP. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll take a break once we get through with this lab 1. So hang in there, ladies and gentlemen, hang in there. All right, so we're already logged in. So we're viewing the lab 1 data. We're already logged in to Sumo Logic. All right. I am going to guide you through these labs. All right. One of the things that we would like to do is identify what data is available. So let me kind of draw the picture for you. Your administrator, that may be you, okay? Maybe they've created the collector and all of the sources for you already. You want to identify if they're out there, okay? So we're going to do this together. Let's go ahead and go back to the Sumo Logic environment. Make sure your navigation panel is open. Let's go down to our main menu, the darker shaded area, and let's click on the link that reads Manage Data. You now see a set of sublinks. Let's click on the collections. Okay. Now I know this collection tab looks overwhelming because right now everything is expanded. All my collectors are expanded by default when I come to the collections tab. Okay. So what you and I can do to make it easier, you'll see the word expand in the center of the screen. Right now it says everything is expanded. We can click on the none. So what that does is that collapses all of our collectors. Now, if you recall, one of the things I talked about that there's two types of collectors. There's hosted, which means it's up in the cloud somewhere. And then there's installed, which means it's on-prem. Some server has been installed. We're going to continue to keep that traffic light in our minds. Green is good. Red, we need to investigate. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and search for a set of collectors. You can do this if you want, or you can just watch. I'm going to type in the word Okta. It is case insensitive. You're going to realize throughout this tool, objects are case insensitive when we type them. In case that ever comes up on an exam, again, case insensitive. So I'm going to type in the word Okta and just hit return or hit enter. It returns the two collectors with the word Okta in them. Okay, let's look at the first one. And again, all we're doing is just getting a feel of how things are done in our tool. So it looks like that there's a collector that's been defined called Labs Okta. It's healthy. It's a hosted type. That means it's in the cloud. It has one source defined underneath it. And there has been some activity within the last hour. It has ingested over 17,000 messages. Okay. I am going to expand the collector definition and I can see the source. So this particular collector is bringing back my Okta logs or metrics. Okay. I am going to collapse the Labs Okta. I'm looking at the lab sec demo. Again, it's healthy. Again, it's hosted. That means it's cloud. There's 5 sources defined underneath this collector. Over the last hour, it has had some activity. It has ingested over 22,000 messages. Now, be aware, ladies and gentlemen, you're logged in as an analyst. Notice adding collectors is grayed out. You don't have the permissions to do that. That's an admin that does that. That's why we tell you come back and take the administration course to learn how to build collectors. All we're doing is identifying if our sources have been defined. Now, continuing on, I digress for a moment. If we expand the lab sec demo, I expand it, I can see it has 5 sources defined. So I'm getting my CloudTrail logs, my S3 buckets, my Okta logs, and my VPC flow metrics and logs, my guard duty. So again, those 5 sources were defined under this collector. All right. Let's go back to our lab steps. We did that. So now I'm on lab step number 1. Okay, we are going to create a new search. What I'd like for you to do, and you can type this, but I'd like for you to save yourself some headaches. Under number 4, there's a query there that we want to right click and copy. If you can't copy it, you can type it. Again, I'll paste it in the actual log query in a second. But for those of you that can copy, again, you're in lab 1, you're under step number 4, and you're copying that query. Okay. And again, yep, Jerry, I was going to place that in there, but you beat me to it. So that's awesome. All right, let's go back to the CIP. And we can close the collections tab. So again, you can go up to the tab and click the X. We can always go back and get that by going to our main menu. There's no big deal there by us closing it, okay? Now, what we want to do here is we want to click on the new button, the blue new button there in the top next to our alerts. Click on that. We get a set of choices. We are going to do log searches here. So go ahead and click on the log search. If you get any pop-ups, you can just skip them. Okay. And you're going to place your cursor in the log search area and paste. Okay. And let's talk about what you do. If you had to type here, I just want you to be aware of what you're typing. This tool has similarities to SQL. Some of you may be familiar with SQL. You know, the asterisk is a wildcard. So we're telling it, hey, we want to count all of our messages in the source category from every source category. We're using the pipe operator, the pipe function, to actually continue our expression. So we're saying all of our message, count them. Okay. Now, whenever you issue a new log search, by default, it's going to be for the last 15 minutes. I'll talk about the time coming up. Okay, let's just go ahead and run it by clicking on the blue magnifying glass. All right, now let's talk about what happened. Okay, when we ran that for the last 15 minutes, what we see first is a histogram, minute by minute. Okay, we can always hide that histogram if we want to. Over to the right, there's a hide and show. Underneath the histogram, we get the status, it's done, the elapsed time, and the total number of results. So we're looking at 998,000. If your number is not like mine, it's not mandatory. That's not the goal of this here exercise. Again, as long as you get values. Now, I see I have 2 tabs. I have my messages tab. I see one of 39,000 pages, okay? But since we issued a count by account, that's an aggregate. It's going to automatically create an aggregates tab. So what I'm seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is the amount of messages from each source category. I can see my Kubernetes had over 56,000 messages coming in. Okay. All right, let's continue on here. Back to our actual lab steps. So we did that. All right, now, suppose that we are interested in log messages for our Apache access, which is one of our source categories. We can now start creating queries to find any messages that we're interested in. But that might not be necessary. Let's imagine that someone in our organization shared a saved search, or they shared dashboards from Apache. So if they did share that, we can actually open it and look at it. Now, another approach is if no one has installed or shared that data, the Apache Access app might be something we want to look for. So let's do the first one first. Okay, so right now I'm under find and display our shared dashboard. Okay, what we're going to do is go to our library and search and see if anyone has shared anything with us. So going back to the CIP together, you can close that search tab. You don't need it anymore. If you want to keep it open, you're welcome to do that, but I'm just trying to give you a clean desktop. Okay. Let's go back over to our navigation panel. And let's make sure we're on our library tab, library folder. Again, we're going to search and see if anyone's shared the Apache access to it. So in the search area, case insensitive. I'm going to type, you're going to type, we're going to type Apache access and hit the enter key. You should see a folder that you can expand that reads Apache access. So go ahead and expand that folder by clicking on it. Underneath that folder that reads Apache access, you just see the Apache overview dashboard. Let's go ahead and click on that Apache overview dashboard. If you get an informational message, you can just close it out. You don't have to take the tour or anything. Now, notice this here dashboard has several dashboard panels. Again, I want you to understand what I mean when I refer to panels. When we create a search, it allows us to create a panel that we can add to a dashboard. So each one of these panels has an underlying query. So I can look at my visitor's location on this dashboard, my response times. So this is a dashboard that someone shared with the entire company, okay? So we were able to easily find it by going to our library and typing in Apache access. All right. Now, again, under number 4 is where we are. If the dashboard contains the information we're looking for or something close to it, that's great, okay? But if the dashboard doesn't show the type of information we're looking for, or if the library search didn't find any useful searches, let's say we didn't find anything when we look for Apache access. Here's the kicker here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a good idea to install the Apache Access app. Sumo Logic apps deliver out-of-the-box dashboards, saved searches, and field extractions for popular data sources. They're the best way to start exploring a new data source on your own. So what we're saying here, and I emphasize those two sentences so you can kind of understand, we give you a starting point if you're new to the tool. You can download some of our created apps and start looking at the searches that are there or the dashboards that are there created for you. Let's do that now, ladies and gentlemen, together here, okay? Let's go back to our CIP. And let's go, you're still in your navigation panel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go down to the main menu, the darker shaded area. And let's click on the app catalog. And you'll see you can filter down to different types of categories, okay? But what we want to do is search for Apache access. Well, we just search for Apache, pardon me, search for Apache, okay? And you'll notice that the tool filters down to anything that has the word Apache in it. And we want the one with the feather. So again, case insensitive, we're searching for Apache. We see the one with the feather, we're gonna click on it. Now, when we add this to our library, ladies and gentlemen, this particular app, it's actually going to add to our personal folder, okay? Notice here, before we add it to our library, we see the different types of dashboards that are included. It also gives you an overview. It says, hey, Odell. Now, yours might not say, hey, Odell, but it says, hey, Odell, the Apache app is a unified log and metrics app that helps you monitor the availability, the performance, the health, and resource utilization of your Apache web farms. So this is, I got a web farm for Apache. This is a great point for me to start at, okay? So together, let's go ahead and click on the Add to Library, the blue button there. And let's go ahead and just put our initials here. So I'm just going to call this, put my initials, and I'll go ahead and put the time. You don't have to do this. I'll put the date here because I do this quite often. Okay. We're not done, ladies and gentlemen. So if you click to add to library, you're too quick with the gun here. We want to change from a source category by clicking the drop down arrow, and we want to enter a custom data filter. Okay. And what we're going to utilize is under number 4 in our lab guide. Let's see here, number 4. Yeah, under number 4, you'll see it reads web server _ system equals Apache. Now, if you're highlighting like myself and you're going to copy, make sure you don't copy the period, which is at the end of the sentence. I'll go ahead and paste that in the chat in case someone can't copy. Okay, you can also type that. So I'm now going back to the CIP. We entered the custom data filter already as a choice. We're now going to paste or type in web server _ system equals Apache. So we're using a custom data filter. We're then going to go ahead and add to library. Yes, the underscore is required for this. Yeah, for purposes. Yeah, no spaces. Good question, Suni. All right. Now, if you look at your actual personal folder, that's where you'll see the Apache access. And if you expand it, you'll see the Apache overview. Okay. So what we did here, ladies and gentlemen, was we actually looked for something that was shared with us throughout our corporation, our company. Then we actually went to the app catalog and actually downloaded the Apache app. Okay. And on here, we can see our requests per minute, our uptime. We can see of where users are logging in, visitors location, where they're logging in from the world. So you can see a lot of information on that particular app. I can see the top 10 URLs, the top 10 URLs with errors, etc. Okay, going back to the actual lab steps here, the last thing we're going to do is share this dashboard. So going back to the CIP, you're in your personal folder. You've created the Apache folder with your initials. Now you want to share it. So if you hover over or go over to the right of the Apache with your initials, there's 3 dots there for you. That's your more. And then we can click share. Okay. Now, when we click the share, you have choices here. Users in rows or groups or individuals. So when I click underneath users and rows, I see that I can choose the entire organization. I can choose some roles or specific users. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you're in our training environment. We're just demonstrating what you should be able to do in your environments at home, at your office. Okay, we're going to go ahead and share this with our entire organization. And when you click it, it also allows you to choose more. You can just click in the background to kind of stop choosing any others. So all we're doing is sharing it with our entire organization. Now, in case this comes up on an exam somewhere, the access permissions are view, edit, and manage. So right now, our organization has the ability to view. We could change that to edit or manage. Notice there's no delete and there's no read if that ever comes up on an exam anywhere. So view, edit, and manage. No delete and no read. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just click share. And now others should be able to find it when they search for it. All right, so congratulations. You've completed task number 1. You've signed into Sumo Logic. You search for sources and categories to see what data appeared that was available for you. You search for and view dashboards that have been shared by someone in your organization. Then you installed an app, shared it with others, opened the dashboard, and included it in the app. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. Let's breathe, stretch, exhale, get out of the room, get away from the computer for a minute, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had an opportunity to breathe, stretch, exhale, get away from the computer for a minute, things of that sort. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we had just completed lab number 1, okay? Within our lab guide, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see in the right corner, the bottom right corner, just after the summary, you'll see the actual lab 2 link. So let's go ahead and go to lab 2, search for log data. Let's click on that link, please. All right. So here we're going to create a query, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. We want to search our log messages, our Apache Access logs, and we want to specify a keyword. Okay. Well, the keyword is get. So in your lab 2, under number 2, you can go ahead and highlight that query and copy it. I'll put it in the chat just in case someone can't get to it. But again, we are in lab 2 and we're under step number 2. Let's go back to our CIP and we can close all the tabs that we have. So if you go up to any one of the tabs, you can go to the 3 dots in the right corner of the tab and choose close all tabs. All right, now let's go ahead and click on the blue new button. Again, the new button is 3 icons to the right of the Sumo Logic, the home. Okay, let's click on new, and we're going to choose a new log search. That's what we're doing in this class, a new log search. Now, let me just show you some of the power of the tool. Okay, I know you could have pasted it there, but again, if you watch for a second, once I place my cursor in the search area, it gives me all of those metadata tags and some additional ones that I talked about, okay? So I could do something like this, and you could just watch right now. I can click on source category because I know that's the one that we often use. And I can start typing labs, Apache, and then I can just, as it starts filtering, I can just go to access. Okay, so you could do that, some of that as well. But again, I'll go ahead and paste what we had so I can break it down for you. Okay. We're using that preferred metadata tag, source category. Okay. We're equating that to our access, our Apache access logs. We're using the AND operator, and it is an implied operator. So it's optional. I don't have to put the AND there. The tool already knows the AND, okay? So it's implied. We're using a keyword, get. So we want to look at our access logs and we want all of the messages that have get in them, okay? And we're going to run that, we're going to run that for the last 60 minutes. So let's talk about the time over here to the right. Remember I said, whenever you create a new log search, it's automatically going to set for the last 15 minutes. But what if you don't want the last 15 minutes? If you were to click that time, it gives you 3 tab choices. It gives you a set of relative times. These are predefined relative times. It also gives you recent. If you've never been in the tool, then you won't have anything in recent, okay? And then it has custom, if you want to narrow down to a date and a time, okay? Now, let me also talk about how you can set your own times. You can specify your own time. So just watch. Again, if I click in the time area and I highlight what's there, so right now it says last 15 minutes, okay? If I highlight what's there and I want to put my own time, I start out with a minus symbol, okay? And then if I wanted to say, let's say 45 minutes, I type in 45 and I use M for minutes, H for hours, and D for days. So again, you can type in manually there. Remember to start out with a minus symbol, your numeric value, and what time frame. Anyhow, I digress. We wanted 60 minutes, right? So I'll leave it to 60 minutes and we'll run by clicking on the blue magnifying glass. You can hide any type of introductory things if you want that pop-ups, okay? All right, so we ran our query using the AND operator and the GET. We know that if I take this AND off of here, the query will still run, give me the same messages again, okay? All right, let me put it back just so you can make sure I didn't lose you. All right, now, you see the histogram underneath. Again, remember you can hide or show that histogram at your leisure. You see the messages tab. And FYI, ladies and gentlemen, this is called your field browser over to the left. This is referred to the field browser in case you ever hear that on a test somewhere, okay? The field browser designates the fields that are going to be displayed. Now, these additional fields, they were actually parsed out, like I say, filter out based on ingestion time. That was based off a field extraction rule. Odell, you're confusing me. What are you talking about? I'm going to digress for a moment. Just watch. In the administration course, we talk about this, but I kind of want to lead you to it. Now, you're just watching. If I go to my managed data and I go to my logs, you're just watching, okay? In my logs, I have something called field extraction rules, okay? And if I go down to a particular one, let's see here, there's one in here that I want to look at. Let's go here. All right, let me just look at any one of these, for example, here. And essentially what I want you to realize is that when these field extraction rules work, and they took the one that I wanted to look at. I hate that. Anyway, let me just look at any one of these. So here's a field extraction rule. And the benefit of it, let me explain the benefit of it. So during ingestion time, what that means is as your messages are being brought into Sumo Logic, and if you're using anything with GitHub, we are issuing a parse statement that's going to extract these fields automatically for you. The benefit of this is an analyst, someone that's writing searches, they don't have to search for these fields because you're parsing them out at ingestion time. So I digress for a moment. Let me go back to where we were together. Here's the search that we were in. That's the one we issued. These fields were parsed out automatically at ingestion time. Some of the benefits of it, if I click just on the word, not the box, if I click on the word, it gives me a breakdown. So I can see I'm looking at the Lab Apache Access. There's over 28,000 records. It's 100%. Okay. If I look at collectors, again, there's only one collector. If I look at sizes, there's multiple sizes. There's only one source category. Again, this will give me the percentage and the count if that ever comes up on an exam anywhere, okay? Anyhow, let's go back to what we were doing. So again, we're looking at our GET messages. If I look here, I have over 28,000 messages. I'm looking at one of 1,121, okay? Now, let me just talk about this for a second. If you ever wanted to change, right now we're looking at one of 25 on a page. So you only get 25 on a page. If I wanted to change the amount of numbers on a page, I go to this gear symbol all the way over to the right. And then I can go to my display message preferences and I can change the number that I'm viewing per page. 25 is the default. So if you ever wanted to do that, you have that capability, okay? All right, now, if we take a look here at one of these 25 messages, we can see that all of our gets are highlighted. So it's found all of the access log messages that have get in them, and it highlighted it for us. Now, what we are about to do now is parse our message. We're going to use a parse anchor to parse out some fields, okay? So for example, let me go back to our actual lab steps so I can get us on the same page. So we ran it for 60 minutes, that's awesome. And all of our get messages are highlighted. So I wanted to bring you back here to the actual lab steps so you can understand parsing. Parsing makes search results much easier to scan and interpret. We are going to parse our log messages for information that follows the get. And we're going to build a new query. We're going to parse out our URL, our status code, our size, and the referring website. That's what we're about to do, okay? Now, we are using a parse anchor. Let me digress for a moment. This is another technique you're going to use when you take the exam. You're going to open up a browser and type in help.sumologic.com. You don't have to do this right now. You're just watching, okay? The advantage of you going to the help is you can query things. So if I want to look for all the parse operators, it gives me a list of choices. I can choose the very first one in most instances. And remember, I talked about the parse. There's different types of parsing here, okay? There's the parse anchor, there's the parse regex, there's the CSV, the XML. Again, there's different types of parsing. Again, I digress to kind of demonstrate what you'll do if you want to find the answer to some questions. Anyhow, let's go ahead and parse our statements. Let's get back to our CIP. We already ran it for 60 minutes. You don't have to run it again. I did that accidentally, sorry, okay? Now, I want you to follow me first, follow my steps. We're using a parse anchor. So I'm in the very first message. I know that the actual double quotes is not going to change. So I'm going to anchor on that, and I'm going to highlight all the way to the referring website and the quote after that. So if you can, go ahead and highlight in your environment just like I did. You're anchoring on the double quotes, and you're highlighting after the get, the actual URL, the status code, the size, and the referring URL, okay? So hopefully everyone has that highlighted. Now let me explain the parse anchor. You use a parse anchor if all of your messages are formatted exactly the same. I can see these messages are formatted the same. The get, the website, the URL, the actual status code, the size, and the referrer. All of these are the same, so I would use a parse anchor. If the messages were not all the same or they came from different sources, then I would use the parse regex. Okay, so that's just a little tip for you in case you ever have to be mindful of that on an exam anyway. Anyhow, we have that highlighted. Let's right click on it and let's use parse selected text. Odell, what are we doing? We're trying to make it easier for analysts, myself and others, to actually look at and review the actual log messages. So we're about to filter out some messages and create some new field, parts of our message and create new fields, okay? All right, so if you're watching me, let's go ahead and follow me, please. I am gonna highlight the website after the get. So I'm highlighting the URL after the get. Once you highlight it, you're going to see something, some phrase there, a yellow phrase. It says, click to extract this value. When you and I click on that yellow phrase, it replaces what we have highlighted with an asterisk. We, you and I, are going to give it a field name. we're going to call it URL, and then we'll add a comma. We're going to do that 3 more times, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to highlight something, click on that extract, and then give it a name, a field name, okay? So after that asterisk, you should see a numeric value. That very first numeric value, yours may be different, doesn't matter. Just want you to highlight that very first numeric value. You now see the phrase, click to extract this value. Let's click on that. It's replaced it with an asterisk, and let's call that status underscore code, no spaces. Looks like I have a question here. How did you pull up the parse text? Okay, Prince, what you do is you highlight that get message that I talked about. And I'll do it again shortly, but let me finish. Once you highlight it, you right click on the highlighted item and choose the phrase parse selected text. All right, ladies and gentlemen, back here, we've already filtered out our URL and our status code, okay? Next, let's highlight the size. That's the next numeric value, okay? Let's highlight that and click on the phrase. Make sure you add a comma there. Make sure there's a comma after there. I'm sorry, I might have not told you that, but make sure you have a comma after that, because again, we want those to be separated. So I'm clicking to extract this value, and then I want to call this size. Then I'll add another comma. And then the last thing we'll do is highlight the referring website. So I'll go HTTP all the way over to the .com. I'll click the phrase, click to extract this value, and then we'll call this refer. Hey, Odell, do I have to use those field names? No, it's not mandatory you use the field names we created, but it's a good practice to use meaningful field names, okay? All right, so we've extracted all of those items. Let's go ahead and click submit. And Prince, just to kind of show you what we did in case you missed it, I highlighted from one quote to another. Again, after my get, I highlighted that, then I right-clicked on it and choose parse selected text. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back up to our query. Notice what happened. We see that we have our original message, source category equals labs, Apache access, and the get, which is using a keyword. But now it's used a pipe, which means continue with my query expression. Here's the parse. It's parsing, it's looking for, you see, get. It says, once you find the get, replace the first object and call it URL. Replace the second object, call it status code. The fourth object, call it size. And the fifth object, call it refer. Okay? Now, all we did was parse out. We need to run it for it to take effect. So let's go ahead and click on the blue magnifying glass. So we see the status is done. The elapsed time was about a second, pardon me. The results are over 27,000 results. I have my messages tab, but notice in my field browser, it's no longer just displaying time and message. It's now displaying refer, size, status code, and URL. Well, how did it do that? Well, our parse statement parsed out. And if we look at our message results, we now have column headers, refer, size, status code, and URL. Odell, I noticed that the order that they're in our query is not the order that the column headers appear in. Well, I'm glad you noticed that. That's awesome. What the tool does is it goes back to alphabetical order. So it put them in alphabetical order, refer, size, status code, and URL. Of course, the time and the messages are outside of what we're talking about, okay? All right, so the benefits of that, okay? How did you get the display fields during the parse text screen? Again, Prince, if you go back here, and I want to show you guys, I'm going to demonstrate quickly here A way to comment out a line of code is to use the 2 slashes. So I'm going to comment out that code. I'm going to help one of the students, so you don't have to do this. So again, if you're watching Prince, what I did and what you should do, again, following the steps in the lab guide here, you're going to highlight the selected item and choose parse selected. So again, all you're doing is highlighting the selected query here. Sorry, let me go here.
I understand that part. During the
Okay.
parse texts, when you were putting them in the box.
Okay.
Yeah, under the fields, exactly, under the fields.
So all you did here was you highlighted the first URL there.
Okay.
So you highlight that.
Right.
It says click to extract text. You click
Okay.
on it,
Mhm.
and then you type in URL, add a comma. And you click
Okay.
on the next item.
Okay, where did you get URL from? That's my question. How
Oh,
did you
okay. So
Okay.
as I mentioned before, you could use anything you want to. We know that this is the URL, so we called it URL. You can call it anything you want to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, good question though. That's a great question. Yeah. So again, we could have called this A, B, and C, and D, but that wouldn't have been meaningful to us.
Right. Okay.
So we called it something meaningful.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, no worries. Good question. All right, let me go here. All right, so I'm commenting, putting that back in there, and we ran a query. We saw the field names and the values now. So that would make it easier for us if we wanted to search for a particular value or a particular status code or something along those lines. All right, back here to our lab steps. Let's keep it going. Did all of that. That's awesome. Now let's save this search, and we're going to call it Apache status codes. So this search we did, we might want to do this again. We don't want to build it. We might want to utilize it again. Okay. So over to the right of your search area, you'll see the icon save as, or you can click on the 3 dots more and choose save as. So again, make sure you're in the query area and you're using the 3 dots there or the icon save as. And we're just going to give it a name. We're going to call it Apache status codes. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you create something and save it, it's going to store it in your personal folder. Let me go ahead and put my initials here. And let me put the date as well. Okay. And just click save. So if you go to your personal folder, you should now see that search along with the app that you saved so far. And again, you could share this by going to the share and clicking the 3 dots and clicking share if you wanted to. All right. So pat yourselves on the back. You've completed task 2. Okay. We created a search query. We parsed the message so they're easier to scan and interpret, and we saved the search. Let's go ahead and click on the bottom, in the bottom right corner, lab number 3. You guys are doing wonderful. Good job. Hopefully you're thinking of ideas of how you can utilize the tool with what we're giving you. All right, now, lab number 3, we want to chart our data. And I want to point out and highlight something very important here. Only search results that have been aggregated using a group or an aggregation operator can be charted. Odell, what does that mean? That means you have to do some type of mathematical aggregation in order to build a chart. Okay? Now, in case that comes up on a test or an exam somewhere, suppose that we're wondering about our 404 errors and we want to learn more about them. Are they happening at once? We can find out by adding an aggregation statement to our query to help group and order the data. Okay, So all we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is go ahead and highlight under number 1, highlight that phrase. I'll put it in the chat in case you can't do that. Let's go back to the CIP, the Continuous Intelligence Platform. Now I need to teach you a feature here. You might have went ahead and hit the enter key because you thought you can add a new line by hitting the enter key. But if you did that, what you found out is all that does is run the query. So if you want to add a new line, which we do, go ahead and place your cursor at the end of the parse statement. In order to add a new blank line on a Mac, you're going to use Shift Return. If you're not on a Mac, you're going to use Alt Enter. That should allow you to add a new line. Shift Return on a Mac and Alt Enter on anything else. And let's go ahead and paste in our actual expression. So if we go back and read this, it says now pipe, which means continue on with our query, count. Notice count is actually in a different color. That's because it's an operator. We're saying count by our status code. That's one of the fields that we filtered out. Let's go ahead and run that. Now, once it runs, you see the elapsed time, you see the total results. Now, not only do you have a messages tab, which is your original tab, you now have an aggregates tab. Well, how did that get created? When we use the count operator. Okay, now let me point this out in case this ever comes up on an exam. I know you get tired of me saying that, but I want you to pass the exam. If you ever wanted to export out your messages, so on your messages tab, in order to export out these results, you go over to the gear symbol and you choose export. That's on the messages tab. If you're on the aggregates tab and you want to export out, the very first icon to the right is your export results. All right, let me get back to my actual lab steps. So we ran it, we get our time, so we can actually see the statuses and the count of each status. Right now, I am on the second part, the lab number, still on lab 3 on the second number 1 here. We're going to, what I want you to do, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go to number 2 and highlight the last 2 lines of code. So under number 2, where it says edit the count operator to read, I want you to go to the second part where it says time slice 1 minute and count by. Go ahead and highlight and copy that. Those 2 lines only. Let's go back to the CIP and let's highlight the very last line in our query. It should be the count by. We're going to replace that. Once you have it highlighted, if you paste, it now highlights your expression. It now replaces your expression. So let's talk about what's going on here. Okay. Again, we're parsing out these fields. We want to render our results in buckets. The time slice operator allows us to find the buckets. We want 1 minute buckets. So it's going to break down by 1 minute time slices. Now notice the count by, ladies and gentlemen. It's important that you understand this. The count by says, hey, I want to count by time slice, but notice time slice has an underscore in front of it. That's to indicate it's a placeholder. Okay, you know, time slice is an actual operator. It's a keyword, so you can't use it to count by. So we're using the underscore time slice. It's acting as a placeholder. And then finally, we're counting by status code. So you can run that. Again, you'll have your original messages tab. And then you have the aggregates tab because of the count by. Now we can see our minute slices, but they're not in any order. So we can easily just click on the time column header and put them in the order. So we can see in the first minute, we had status code 200 and we had over 247. The second minute, we have status code 5, we had 2 of those, and so forth and so on. Okay, Rakeem, make sure that you copy the query exactly like mine. Make sure it reads count by underscore time slice, comma, status underscore code. Make sure it's spelled just like the status code in your parse statement. Okay. And just to kind of help you out, I'll paste in the chat mine so you can utilize it if you want to. All right. Now, let's go back to our steps here. Make sure your size of your screen is correct. I'm not sure why you wouldn't see the status code unless your parse statement isn't working correctly. That's the only thing I can think of right off. Okay. Now, this would be great. We're looking at a list of items, but if we want to do some comparisons, some analysis, or we want to identify some trends, a list is difficult to do comparisons, analysis, or trends. So the next step in our actual lab guide is to go down to the transpose, okay? Under transpose, which is the category, go ahead and highlight what's under number 1 there, that transpose. Go ahead and highlight and copy that. We're going to go back to our CIP and we want to add another line. So we want to add that transpose as the last line of code. So we're placing our cursor at the end of the count by statement. And we're adding a new blank line. On my Mac, I'm using Shift Return. On anything other than a Mac, you're using Alt Enter, and then I'm pasting. If we take a look at this statement here, it reads, transpose. I want my time slice on the rows. I want my status code on the columns. So let's go ahead and run that. And again, we want to get that Excel-like feel, Excel-like, okay, Microsoft Excel. So we see on our columns, our status codes. We see on our rows, our actual time slices, okay? And that transpose operator puts the actual time slice in order for us automatically. So we can do comparisons, do analysis, and identify trends easily, okay? All right, next, we now are on our create a chart, okay? Again, remember you have to have an aggregate in order to create a chart. If we go back to our actual CIP, on my aggregates tab, I have different types of display options. So the third icon there is my chart, my bar chart, column chart, line chart, area chart, or I can use a pie chart, okay? Again, we want to use a column chart in this one, in this particular example. Now, if you notice, if you look at mine here, I have these 200s are actually dominating this chart. My 200 error messages, error codes, status codes. I can, you can, we can go over to our legend, over to the right. You might have to use your cursor to scroll over. Your legend, I can click on the 200s and it hides them. I can click on the 304s and it hides them because I don't want to see the 304s or the 200s. They're usually informational. Okay. Now, Yes, you and I, we can toggle those on and off. But what we'd rather do is actually code or remove those from our query by using some code, okay? So let's go back to our lab guide and let's go down to number 1 here. We're almost at the bottom of here. So you want where it reads where exclamation mark, which is a not status code 200 or status code 404, 304s. So what if we didn't want to get rid, we wanted to get rid of the 200s or 304s permanently? No problem. Just add a where clause to the query right above our time slice. So it's going to be important where we place this. It's a best practice to filter your data before you aggregate it. That's why we add the where statement before the count operation. The exclamation point is used as a not. So the statement means where the status code is not 200 or 304s. So we copied it. Let's go back to our CIP. Let's place our cursor at the end of the parse statement. Let's add a new line by using the shift return or alt enter, and let's paste in the where. And as it mentioned in the directions, it says where the exclamation mark, which means status code not equal to 200, or excuse me, not 200 or not 400. And let's go ahead and run that. And we'll see from our legend that the 200s and the 304s are no longer displaying. We can hover over and look at any of the actual lines. All right. Wow, you guys are making excellent progress. You completed the task number 3. You aggregated your results. You used the transpose operator and you created a chart for your results. Okay. Let's go ahead on to lab number 4, creating and sharing a dashboard. Again, dashboards are powerful forensic tools. Remember, the numbers are great, but visualizations are your key items for your search results, okay? What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and add our panel to a dashboard. So we're going to create a panel and add it to a dashboard. Now, let's go back to our CIP. And let me digress for a moment and paint the story, okay? We wanted to display our results. So the first thing we did was we created a query. From our query, we're going to create a panel, and that panel is going to be added to a dashboard. So if you recall, when I did the demo earlier, I demonstrated looking at dashboard panels, and I said each one of those panels has an underlying query. Here's the results. Here's the query. You and I together. Now let's do this together. I'm done digressing. I'm going to click on the add to dashboard over to the right. Now, please follow me with these steps. Okay, don't go ahead. By default, the tool is using what you saved your query as. So remember, we saved this search as Apache status. You can rename it here if you wanted to. You could. Now, let's click in the dashboard area together. What it's doing, ladies and gentlemen, and it did it so quickly, you might not have noticed, it's going and finding out all of the dashboards that exist right now. These are all of them. So if we wanted to add this existing panel, excuse me, if we want to add this panel to an existing dashboard, this would be how we would do it, okay? But we don't want to add it to an existing dashboard. We want to create our own new dashboard. So let's go ahead and start typing. Let's call it Apache status codes, whoops. And let's put our initials. And I'll just put a timestamp here. You don't need to do this. So as you start typing and typing something unique, it starts giving you, filtering down to, you get a message. Hey, Odell, do you want to create a new dashboard called Apache Status Code with your initials? Yes, I do. So we would just click on that create new. Now, it's important that you do this step. We're going to turn off the new dashboard. We're going to use the legacy dashboard because we have some exam questions that deal with the legacy environment. Okay, so if you don't turn this off, you're going to get an error message. So again, that's why I'm emphasizing turn that off. Now you can go ahead and click the add in the bottom left corner, right corner. So what you've done now is you've created a panel and added it to a dashboard. If you look in your personal folder, you now have a newly created dashboard. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, you're in the edit mode of the dashboard. Odell, how do you know that? Because that blue done editing, that implies that you're in the edit mode. If I were to click it off, now I'm out of the edit mode. In order to get into the edit mode, I click on the pencil. Okay, now let's go ahead and do some more things while we're here. We're in the edit mode. Let's go over to the three dots, the more, to the right of the edit mode. Let's click on those. Okay, we want to add a panel. So we clicked on the three dots and clicked on add panel. This is going to allow us to create a text title panel. So we could call this Apache Status Codes. We can click on the text radio button and we can type in, this panel will display Apache status codes. Okay, so all we're doing is just adding some more information onto the actual dashboard. We added an actual panel. Okay, now other things you can do on your with your dashboards. I'm holding my left mouse down. I can click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag. So I can reorder them. I can also go to the corner hash marks and resize them as well. So I'm just holding down my left mouse, okay? Other things that you can do within the actual dashboards, you can toggle the theme. Right now we're in a lighter theme. If I go to the three dots, I can click on toggle theme. Now I'm in a more darker, mysterious theme. I can go back to the lighter theme to go to my three dots and click more and toggle. Okay. All right, you can click on the done editing. And let's go back to our steps. We did all of that. We added the text panel. You guys were awesome. Did all of that. That's great. Also be aware, let me go back and demonstrate this as well. Just like we did before, if we wanted to share this dashboard, we can go to the three dots and share it, or up in the menu to the right, you can click on the share. It's going to bring up that same share menu we saw before. We can click on the share this content, choose the entire organization, and we can just click share. All right, so going back to here, good job, ladies and gentlemen. You completed the task in part 4. You created a panel from your search results. You added it to the new dashboard. You added a text panel. You changed the look and feel of a dashboard, and you shared your dashboard with others in your organization. Rakeem, I don't know what you're doing there. If you look at my query, that's what you want to utilize. If you go back to the lab guide, you can copy from the lab guide and use those steps as well. You're welcome. Glad you got it fixed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and click on lab number 5. Lab number 5. Now that we know how to create a dashboard, change the look and feel, let's see how we can change the content of a data panel. So that application, that app that we downloaded from the app catalog, we're going to go back to that, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and change some things. So let's go back to our CIP. Click on your personal folder in your navigation menu over to the left. That's your third tab, the personal folder. You should see your folder that reads Apache and your initials. Let's go ahead and expand that folder that reads Apache and your initials. Underneath that folder, you should see a purplish, bluish type icon. That's your Apache Overview dashboard. Let's go ahead and click on that Apache Overview dashboard. If you recall, when we consumed this, we saw some uptime, request time, bytes per minute. What we are going to focus on, ladies and gentlemen, is the visitor's location panel. Be aware that this panel is interactive. We can zoom in by using the scroll or double clicking to zoom in. We can use our left mouse to drag and focus on any other of the areas. But we can see in this visitor's location, it's actually giving us insight from all around the world. What you and I want to do is change to focus on the US. So going back to our lab guides, under number 3, we're going to highlight the actual where statement. We can modify the query to zoom in on the United States portion. We're going to add a soft return right after the lookup line to specify the country. So we highlight and copy this expression. Let's go back to our CIP. For the visitor's location, let's go over to the right of the visitor's location panel and click on the 3 dots. That's your more. We want to choose edit. By choosing edit, we're not launching a new tab. We're editing this dashboard panel right here. Now, our actual query is up top. Since we're going to use a where clause for the country name, we need to add this where after the lookup. So let's place our cursor at the end of the lookup statement, and let's add a new line by using Shift Return or Alt Enter, and let's paste in the where country name equals United States. Again, there's a method to this query syntax because we needed to add it after the lookup retrieves it. Now we want to run this query, so let's go ahead and click on the magnifying glass to run it so it updates our query expression. It also updates our visitor location chart. The last thing we want to do on this panel is go ahead and update the dashboard. So now the dashboard is only showing the United States. And you can drill all the way down to the street level if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that, but be aware you can. But notice we're only seeing the United States. Okay. All right. The last lab here, lab number 6. Lab number 6. Let's create an alert. So let's click on lab number 6. We're going to create an alert off of our visitor's location. So let's go back to our CIP. Let's go back to our Apache Overview dashboard. Let's go back to our visitor's location panel. This time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to click on the more, but we're going to click on open in a search. The reason we need to do it open in a search is because we need to create an alert. In order to create an alert, we need to save as. So you can either go up to your search and choose the icon save as, or you can click on the 3 dots and choose the save as. Once the save as screen comes up in the bottom left corner, you're going to click on the schedule this search. Go ahead and click on the schedule this search. Right now, the schedule is never going to run. So we want to change that by clicking the drop down arrow over to the right, and we're going to choose 15 minutes, every 15 minutes. Once we make that selection, we now see more items to populate. So we see we want to run it every 15 minutes. We're going to change the time range to run for the last 60 minutes. So we're running every 15 minutes for the last 60 minutes. We are going to be alerted by email, but be aware there's other types of alert mechanisms available for you. If you wanted to go back to Slack, you could use a webhook and go to Slack. If you use a script action, or you can use CSE signals or what have you. We're going to leave it as email. We're going to add a recipient. Again, you're in our training environment, so just be aware. I'm just going to add one of my cohorts. And all right, so I'm adding a recipient. If you scroll down further, you want to make sure you enable CSV attachment. If you go up to the email subjects, go ahead and highlight that. We're going to replace that from our actual lab guide under number 6H. You're going to see some variables there in a box. Under 6H, you're going to copy those variables, go back to the CIP, and where it reads email subject, make sure you have what's there highlighted and just paste. You'll see over to the right of the email subject area a flyout window. And it tells you the variables are going to give you the number of raw messages, the name of the search, as well as the time at which it was ran. Odell, what are we doing? We're setting up alert and we're giving it some actual options. And then we click save. Now, I have to go over how to turn off the alert as well. So you can go to either your personal folder where your actual alert is. So you can go to the actual 3 dots and click on edit. Or if you still had the search open, you can go to the 3 dots of the query, the search there, and choose edit. And then you can edit this search schedule and change the frequency to never, and then choose update. So that would be the method you would use to turn off the actual alert. All right, so wrapping things up, if you look at the bottom of lab 6, you'll see if you ran it, it would give you the visitor location, it would give you a diagram, and it also would give you an Excel CSV printout, okay? And then we just talked about how to set it to never to turn off that alert. All right, lab 7 is basically informational. I'll leave this lab here for you. If basically it's going to tell you if you want more information, you want to check out our release notes, search our documentation hub, visit the learn page, post a question on our Sumo Logic community, try our customer Slack channel, or contact support. Okay. There's a few more slides that I want to go through before we finish up. One of the things that we did here was we did an actual search. And it's important that you understand that there's a syntax for those searches, okay? Again, we want to make sure that you utilize the metadata. So we use the metadata tag and we search for our actual access. The and is implied. It's optional. You don't have to put it there. It's implied. We use the keyword. In this example, we're using Mozilla as a keyword. Again, a keyword is going to help you filter down. We then parsed out. We then filtered, aggregated, and formatted. That's the syntax. The reason the syntax is important is so you can narrow your search scope. You narrow your search scope by following the syntax, by using metadata and keywords, by using parse statements, filtering. Remember, there's different types of parse. We use the parse anchor. There's parse regex, there's CSV, JSON, and so forth. We filtered, we aggregated, and we formatted. That's the syntax you want to follow. Okay, again, I showed you in the demonstration some of our advanced analytics. Remember, I used the log reduce, where we were able to find that needle in the haystack. It identified patterns for us. Another analytical tool you can use is the log compare. Let's say you want to compare 24 hours ago to see if there's any anomalies or if there's any patterns. Again, you can use the log compare there. There's also the live tails. Now, live tails are used by administrators typically. A live tail allows you to see the messages as they're being ingested into Sumo Logic. Okay, there's a governor that we have set that you can only run 10 concurrent live tails at one time. Again, this is typically something the administrator does. It allows you to see the messages as they're being ingested. All right, so wrapping everything up here, scroll down and get to where we need to be. All right. So what we want to do here is we now want to take the exam. Okay, let me get to my slides correctly. All right, all of this stuff we went through already. And if there aren't any questions, are there any questions first? All right, I'll give you that in a second, Mohammed, on how I get the Uber Eats voucher. All right, so if there aren't any other questions that are related to what I covered here, what you're going to do to take the exam. Let me explain this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you want to follow my steps first. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, because you don't want your certificate after you take the exam, you don't want it to read, congratulations, training analyst 311, you've completed the fundamental. You don't want that. So the first thing you want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is log out of our training environment. How do you do that? From the navigation panel. Go down into the main menu. That's the darker area. Click on your name, your credentials, your training, and then choose sign out. That's the first thing you want to do. Okay. Then you want to log in to your company's Sumo Logic environment. Okay, I'm simulating what you're going to do. So here I'm logged in as myself. And you would do that in your Sumo Logic environment. Okay, let me close out some of these tabs so it doesn't be overwhelming. You want to take the certification in yours. So I would take certification as myself. Okay, so you, just like I am, you're going to click on certification. You're in your home tab, click on certification. Then you'll click on get certified. Once you click on get certified, you're going to, of course, go to the get certified box. You'll click on that get certified box. Then you'll click on fundamentals. That's what we've just taken. If you need to take it in a different language, you have the actual filtering over to the left. So you would click on fundamentals. It's going to ask you to register real quickly. You'll register. And I want to take you through this scenario so you'll understand. You'll go ahead and click on start assessment. And again, here's the first question. We have over 1,000 questions. Again, this test is 30 questions. You may not get the same questions as everybody else, okay? Anyhow, it says parsing allows you to provide structure to your log messages by extracting fields that you can analyze. Which of the following is false? Use the XML operator, use the split operator, use the key value operator to extract the fields, use the parse. I know there's not a key value operator, so I'm going to click on that. Okay. So if you take this test, you'll get that one right. You'll scroll down after you take all 30, click next. And here's the thing here. I got it wrong. So I got that one wrong. But here's the key. I can see what I've gotten wrong. That's all you can do is see. You can't do anything else. And then you'll submit. Okay. That's the key thing you want to do. You want to view the thing and submit. You can take this test exam as many times as you want. If you don't want to take it now, you don't have to, but it's good to take it now because it's fresh in your mind. One other thing to be mindful of, okay, this exam, as I mentioned earlier, this exam is open resources. It's open slides, it's open lab, open documentation. You need 75% to pass. It's a 60 minutes. I'll be here for the entire 60 minutes. It's 30 questions, okay? Now, just to remind you, how do you get to the actual slides? Again, you go into Sumo Logic in your real world environment. You click on the Home tab. You click on Certification. You click on Get Certified. Once you click on Get Certified, if you want the actual lab and the slides, you click on Recorded Live Training. Once you click on that, you go to the fundamentals, and there you'll have the actual ability to download the slides and the lab guide. Okay. So I am going to stop sharing, see if there are any questions here. I'll put the Uber Eats in there in a second. So if your company is not using it yet, but got this invite, how do you, I'll give an answer to you shortly, Jerry. I was able to log into the training environment. Can I still take the exam? Yes, Daniel, you're going to take the exam not in our training environment anyway. You're going to take the exam in your company's Sumo Logic environment. Okay. All right, let me turn off the actual video. You can, after you take the exam and you pass the exam, because you guys are going to pass it, you can have the rest of the day or the evening to yourself. You can actually leave the actual environment. Okay. Let me put in here the Uber Eats voucher. Right here for you. And on behalf of the trainers here at Sumo Logic and all the staff members, we thank you for allowing us to present to you. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you in some upcoming training courses. Again, I will be here for the next hour to assist you. You can ask me questions. Don't forget to use your help, sumologic.com. Good luck. Thank you all.